So one of my favorite TikToks of yours is, um, I guess you'd call it Master of Things, and it's where you were
Mm,
talking about, um, where you break the spine of the book and you let the student know that we are the master of things, and things aren't the masters of us. And I thought, wow, what an amazing concept. I wish I had someone like you to teach me that when I was young, because it's like I was always the kid who was like, hey, I'm not going to break the spine of this book. I'm going to make sure it stays nice and things like that. And it's like, wow, you can actually just take things and do what you want with them, and that's kind of what they're there for. It's such a good lesson. But so my question basically is, how do you come up with your ideas like that? Where do they come from? Do you like write them out at night, or is it like a brainstorm session kind of thing?
well, the ideas come from a couple different places. And one is I do want to factor in psychology, and I do believe that people are born differently, and we all have strengths in different areas. So I think partially I might just have a mind that's sort of wired to have the ideas bubbling up here and there. Um, and that's a strength, and that's wonderful. With it comes all sorts of weaknesses. Like I wasn't very good at applying my ideas, and it took me years and years of like really struggling to get any sort of ability to maintain control over my idea flow. So it's, everybody has those strengths and weaknesses. So I think that I do have some natural inclination for it, but I think I also did some things that made it more likely that I could come up with an idea. And one was I tried a lot of things. I was a constantly curious, fascinated person, so I would just try stuff, and that resulted in me getting sort of a wider education, maybe than average. Um, and then the next thing is, like you, I also write songs. And I went through a period of time when I was writing a song every day, and I did that for quite a while. And as you know, that you can very quickly, when you commit to something like that, run across a day when you're like, well, I don't have a song in me today. What do I do? And so I started studying how to come up with an idea. And one of the tools that I ended up using the most was mind mapping. And I'd go through that process of, just writing one word on a page, feather. And then, okay, what comes to mind when you think of the word feather? And it's like, okay, light. All right. So now that we have the word light, well, what comes to mind with the word light? And now, you might bounce up to a totally different direction. Like you might say red, because, well, there's red light. And originally, we had one meaning of the word light, which is light as in less weight. But we transferred that to light, the emanation. And learning to let go and free associate that way, where it's like, take one thing, what does that bring to mind? What does that bring to mind? What does that bring to mind? It's a way of exploring sort of what's in your head, and then if you go down that rabbit hole for a while, usually you can come across something that your mind grabs onto, and that's usually the thing that you're interested in. And there's your idea, and I gotten to the point where I was free associating entire sentences, where like I'd write a sentence and then I'd say, okay, what does that make me think of? And then I'd write a new sentence and I'd go, what does that make me think of? And I wouldn't remain attached to the original sentence, and that would allow me to go down new rabbit holes and new paths to ideate, to find what I wanted. And so that was something that I explored a ton. And that had some interesting side effects, where I found that I was more easily able to have things pop to mind, where, somebody would bring up one concept, and, two or three other concepts would pop into my head being connected to it. And people would say, how did you make that connection? And I think it was through process, and practice. So that was a big one for me, was learning that concept of association. Another of being able to come up with ideas is indeed the letting go of perfectionism, because perfectionism just totally kills ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see what else. There's a couple other things. So this is also different based on personality type.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found that is, if you're an idea person, when it comes time to do a project, if you've made an idea list, then when you want to go create your project and you're using that old idea, often you'll feel sad because now your old idea is the boss and you have to just carry it out, and you want to come up with a brilliant new idea. So right now on TikTok, I am, I'd say 90% of the time, never planning the TikToks. I'm never planning what I'm going to write because I'm trying to give myself the freedom to feel powerful, feel like I'm taking an action that I have power over by I'm not writing down a lot of idea lists, and I am just devoting time to coming up with the idea that day. I do now sometimes write idea lists, but when I initially started doing this, if I came up with an idea and wrote it down, I'd throw away the paper because I found that for people that are super idea oriented, sometimes idea lists actually make them feel like they don't get to do the fun part when it comes time to really do the work.
Yeah, the fun part's important. So with that kind of mindset, I don't suppose you ever just take a look at your TikToks and go, well, this one did well, maybe I should do one like this. Is that tempting, or is that something you don't even think about?
I absolutely do it. It's an important part of the process. It's like, you're making love to someone, and they you do something and you see that it feels good to them. It's like, okay, never do that thing again. It's like that's not the right path,
Right.
That's not a good idea. So and sometimes for the creative person, it sort of feels that way where it's like, oh, I can't do that again, I've done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, you don't want to go that far down that rabbit hole. And I think the reason why creatives go that far down the rabbit hole is because they don't feel free.
Mm-hmm.
They don't feel like they get to make what they want to make. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to work really hard to give myself the freedom. I'm trying to work really hard to reinforce to my mind that, no, you're not shackled to a particular subject. You're not shackled to a particular thing you have to create. But we can go down these rabbit holes of your interest where we can create things that are more and more satisfying, both for you and a much more satisfying interaction for the audience. So I do look for things that people respond well to, because I have plenty more to say on that thing. There are some things that people respond to well that I've chosen not to, like stock picking, for example. I've noticed that anytime I mention a ticker symbol of a stock, it suddenly the comments just turn into a football game, which it's just it's like I don't know, it just gets so boring to me that I know I could get success going down that path, but it's like it becomes so it's like those tourist events where you go in for the dinner to watch the old like knights bashing against each other, and you're the red team and they're the blue team, and it's like, it's fun for a night and a dinner, but like I don't want my my creative process to be defined by that kind of behavior, and like that's sort of super common in the stock picking world. So there's some things that I chose not to, even though they did really well. But most of the things, it's like I've noticed people respond really powerfully to these concepts about setting boundaries and becoming dangerous. And it's like, God, I'm happy to talk more about that. Like,
Sure.
we need to know more about that. We need to know that like a person can, tap into their power, and that's not a bad thing. We need to know that a person can risk behaving in a powerful way, and they actually can't succeed without taking that risk.
Right.
We need to know that that's an option. And I've noticed that when I make stuff talking about that, people kind of wake up a little bit, and that's incredibly exciting to me, and it makes me want to make more stuff like that.
Sure.
So it's I am slowly giving myself creative bumpers that allow me to like align my ideas and get a little bit more focused. But I'm doing it in a way that makes me still feel like I'm steering my own ship. And I think for the creative, that's, I mean, for anyone, it's just incredibly valuable to know that, you've chosen the path that you're on.